Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, our director discussion show here on the Nerd Party Network. This week, we're continuing to look at the works of Kathryn Bigelow with her only PG-13 film, 2002's K-19, The Widowmaker, telling the tale of the 1961 Soviet submarine reactor failure and the heroic efforts of the crew. Star Wars heroes Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson lead this gripping man versus radiation story beneath the waves. I'm your host this evening, Darren New Dr. Moser, and I'm joined again by my friends Tristan Ice Cap Riddell and pipe fitting safety inspector number 3, John Mills.
Wait, am I just a block of ice?
No, that's your nickname. You're Ice Cap. You're like, you got off the ship and when we're about to take the photo, the last good day of our lives,
yes,
you got a cool nickname.
Okay. All right, good.
And John, we blame for everything. I'm sorry.
I'm the reason that everything went wrong, which honestly, that pretty much tracks with my life and this podcast. So, fitting choice. Thank you, Darren.
If we ever cover Apollo 13, just know where you're going to rank. Okay.
Oh, I know. I'm fully aware. I get it.
I'm actually, I know this is completely off topic, but I'm kind of surprised we haven't done Howard. We haven't done House of Howard. Ron Howard.
Well, there's plenty of time to get to him.
That's true. That's neither here nor there. Oh. Darren, please.
No.
Yes.
But hey, that's how things end up on the list. And you too can contact us at thenerdparty.com if you want to let us know what you think we should record. Maybe we'll listen, maybe we won't, but usually the good ideas do end up eventually down the list. Don't ask how long the list is, listeners, because it's fairly long. I think we're booked through mid-January right now. But here, no there. John, this is your first time going beneath the waves with K-19, The Widowmaker. You were not caught up with apparently the early 2000s submarine vibe that was going on, because there were quite a few films. We're going to just look from 89 to 2004. I have at least a dozen of these. We have Hunt for Red October in 90, Crimson Tide in 95, Down Periscope in 96. I'm going to kind of count Sphere in 98, U571, which I think was a lot of people sometimes confused with this one, in 2000, Below in 2002, same year as Widowmaker. And then maybe we could talk about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou later.
Nice choice.
But we love our submarines, but this one, again, we're looking at a semi-historical take on an actual event that occurred. It's set in the 60s, where it was a little weird for me looking at the modernness. Like, I'm so used to like diesel subs and World War II-ness that this was a little more modern than I was expecting. But John, did you know anything about this? Did you, except for the stars or maybe the poster, or this one just passed you by?
Well, you mentioned Hunt for October and Crimson Tide, and I got to be honest with you that when you're the old man and you saw both of those in the movie theater, other submarine movies surface from time to time. You're like, that's cute. You stay over there. I've already seen 2 of the greatest submarine movies that could ever be made. You got to really, really, really convince me to go to the theater. And then I'll be honest, it was a terrible marketing push. I mean, number one, this is coming out in the summer. Bad choice. Number 2, Harrison Ford plays a Russian sub-captain in the Cold War. I'm like, that's a whole bunch of words that just don't make any sense to me. And the poster was, look, the poster sucks. The poster is Harrison Ford scowling at me, looking like he's being a grumpy old man. It's like, you better not come in this theater and see my movie. I'm like, all right, fine. I won't come see it.
Okay,
and so there you go.
No joke. I was going to start playing. I have multiple monitors as I was working, and during my lunch, I had K-19 up and I had the menu up, and I was just like, oh, I gotta get to this email real quick. And I keep out of the corner of my eye, Harrison Ford was just looking at me disapprovingly, like,
Judging
do you
you.
really need to use that semicolon?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I literally turned it off, like, because I couldn't handle it.
Well, now you know how I felt when they were trying to convince me to go see the movie. No. So yeah, I knew, I think I saw something that I don't remember if it's on the poster or not, where it's like inspired by true events. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Sure. And it just wasn't enough to get me in the theater, honestly. I mean, seriously, I think releasing this in July of 2002 is basically like release calendar suicide, because it's like, May of 2002, there was a little Star Wars movie that came out that, wasn't still all the hotness in July, but wasn't this the same summer as like Men in Black 2 or something like that? And
Yeah,
so
02 was a decent summer for
So
sure.
why on earth would you take a movie like this and throw it up against competition like that? That's
Yeah,
nuts.
I don't
This is a
understand.
fall movie. This is an
Yeah.
award season movie.
Yeah,
This
I was going to
feels
say,
like
this
a
is a
fall-
prestige film.
Yeah.
Why would you put it in the summer? Yeah.
This is like you're going to see a movie with your dad after Thanksgiving, and this is what you guys go see. Like that's this
on.
movie.
Spot
They should
on.
have put
Absolutely.
that on the poster.
On the poster, the movie you'll see if you're going to see one movie with your dad after Thanksgiving. See K-19, The Widowmaker.
Gosh, I'm going to make
$2
that
off.
poster now.
$2 off your ticket if you bring in a selfie of you and your dad eating turkey before you go in. There you go.
You won't have an appetite after the film, so watch it after Thanksgiving.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
so I work in my basement. Like I work from home like 3 days out of the week. And so, but like I'm surrounded by all my kids' crap, and all their toys and everything like that. And so I normally keep the basement door open, but when it's shut, it means don't come down. Dad's watching something spooky. And so I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to go watch something a little spooky. So just let the kids know. And she's like, oh, is it fun spooky? I was like, no, it's Russian young men dying from radiation poisoning. And she's like, so not fun spooky.
Yeah. Apparently, when researching for this film, like they toned it way down. Apparently, like they looked up, radiation exposure and what it does to you, and they made it much more sanitized than what actually probably would have happened. Like it's really bad.
Yeah.
Have either of you seen Chernobyl
terrible.
on HBO?
Yes.
I've seen
yes.
lots of clips of Chernobyl. I have not watched it 100% yet.
You're not the same after you watch that series. That
Yeah.
series
They
is
don't
absolutely
shy away from it. Like they did not lessen the effects, especially with one individual in particular. And for those of you who've watched, you know what I'm talking about. And it's oh my God, it's just gruesome. It's just radiation.
It's a terrible way to go.
One has to be one of the worst ways to go.
Well, I mean, considering that it's basically your entire body just starts decomposing while you're walking around in it, that's a pretty tough row to hoe. I mean,
and
good
the
Lord.
psychological effect of knowing, like, because I went into that room, I'm going to die. Like, but you not instantly, but like it's the unseenness of radiation. It's like just diabolical in how it's going to get you, but it's not like a traditional attack. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know that you could show it any more graphically in this movie without getting like an R rating bordering on an NC-17. Like this is, and I think that's the unfortunate thing is they are towing that line. And I think as a result, it does work to the detriment of the movie a little bit because of the fact that when they come out and you see them, you understand, contextually, I understand why Peter Sarsgaard's character, Rodchenko, freaks out and won't go in. It's a very relatable moment.
Yes.
It's like, you don't judge that character. You're like, yeah, okay, I get why you're freaking out here. But I think that if they had gone a little more hardcore with what it looked like, I think it would have made him even more sympathetic in that moment. And So I'm not like arguing that like stuff should have been falling off of them or anything. I just think it could have gone a little bit harder in that scene.
Yeah,
so like instead of
in my
Min
research
coming out and vomiting, and he freaking out, it's like, oh, you see the horror on his face because there's little horror on their faces. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that completely. And I'm really glad that both of you guys, not that I thought anything different, but I'm really glad that both of you guys didn't put him in a box, because we all of us want to think that we're the hero of our own story, that we would rise up and do what's right and do what's best for us and everyone else and everything like that. But in that moment, you have no idea what you would do until you're in that moment.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it's also great that whether that's actually part of the true account or not, I think it's very important to have that character have that reaction, because that shows how heroic these guys were being in what they were doing, but also that's a huge payoff for him at the end, because he does go in and he knows full well what's about to happen to him. And it's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting how for, Rodchenko, it's, I'm not going to say it's his story, but he's definitely a major player. Like, I would say he's number 3 as far as story focus goes. The choices he makes, and like you said, having that setup really enhances the payoff later when he makes the choice. He's in there for 18 minutes, like he's in there a long time, basically like to get it done. And we know that it's, he, when they're listing that so many died, I know that he's one of them. Like, I don't even doubt it. Like, it's not like, oh, maybe he lived. It's just, no, I know that's not even a plausible solution.
The only thing that undercut that moment so hard for me was when Harrison Ford's character, when like the temperature starts going down and like the water starts going through and everything like that, and Harrison Ford goes, he made himself a hero. I'm like,
right. Yeah. Maybe that delivery wasn't the best.
The line, the delivery of it, it was just, it sucked all the air out of the room. And it just, like I said, it just undercut it for me.
Ford is the best in this when he is curt and saying very little, like, and just presence. Like, not that he doesn't say anything, because he says a lot really well in this, but it's definitely a less is more. And yeah, we get Rodchenko, we get the soldier who jumps off the boat and is like, I'm not going back in, and again, I think it was important to show it's not like everybody fell apart, but there's just enough resistance that you're like, yeah, they're all having to make that decision. Or even the end where the captain asks them and they all, I for me, that was kind of an emotional part when they're all ticking through the compartments and they're all saying, we're going to do our duty. And it mirrors, again, we haven't talked about directing yet, but I love how it mirrors the opening sequence of that when they're getting ready to go down for the first time as they're getting underway. And it's the exact same sequence of the compartments reporting in, but there's so much more weight.
Yeah.
Because of what we've been through.
Yeah. The tough thing for me is that there were certain moments, Tristan, I'm glad you called out Ford's line there. He made himself a hero. I think that there is and this is going to sound weird, but I think like this sort of is Bigelow's strength and her weakness as a director. It's a very fine line for her to walk, where what this movie is lacking is that ability to connect with me so that I'm actually like viscerally rooting for somebody on the crew, where I'm rooting for them in a very personal sense. If you go to Hunt for Red October, it's not even Sean Connery for me. It's not even really Jack Ryan. It's Sam Neill's character, the guy that just wants to go to Montana. That guy, and you're really emotionally invested in that guy because he's the innocent soul. He's like, I just want to have a good life, man. Right? Crimson Tide, Denzel Washington, beginning to finish. You're like, he's awesome. I love him as my commander. He's a great dude. I'm with him the whole way, so that when the conflict happens at the end, there's not even a question. There's not a chance I'm on Gene Hackman's side, even before that conversation that Tarantino wrote. I'm completely with Denzel from beginning to finish. There's no character like that I latch onto here. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. The closest I came was Liam Neeson's character. I think he's supposed to be the most sympathetic character of the hero characters that you see, where it's like you can understand what he's going through the best. But even that gets undercut because, true to life or not, when he's like, "Hey, good job with the mutiny, guys. Now give me the gun and the key. All right, you guys are under arrest." And then at the end, he's like an ass to the guy who was like just doing what he thought was right. I was like, but you all still went for the, like, I'm very confused by the ending. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about these guys at the end.
Yeah, when Liam Neeson, I feel like for his character, I just made the connection in my mind. He's kind of like Deckard in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where he's the captain, he has the most knowledge, and then Comrade Kirk comes in and just says, "Nope, you're sorry, you have to stay on and run the ship for me, but I'm the captain now."
Which is even funnier.
I'm just picturing Kirk in like that Che Guevara T-shirt with their beret. I'm just picturing William Shatner in that pose.
But the thing that makes that even funnier for me, Darren, is that the whole relationship of Kirk and Deckard is modeled after a previous Robert Wise movie, I think it's Run Silent, Run Deep, where the same sort of command structure upheaval happens, where the senior guy comes in and takes the captaincy from a guy. So that's a funny thread to follow all the way through.
I did find that relationship dynamic really interesting because they went out of their way to show that Neeson took it like a champ. Like he took it as a true professional, where it was, no, this is the job. I'm not losing my rank. I'm just, losing my position. I'm the XO. I'm still on this boat. I'm still with my guys. It's totally cool. If that's what the motherland wants, that's what they're going to get. But he still felt a responsibility to the ship and the crew in a way like a captain would. But at the same time, they didn't show him as a saint. It wasn't clear that like, oh, Ford is the big bad because he represents, the Soviet government, and Neeson is just the guy. He's the man's man. He's the man of the people. Nothing like that. It was, I felt like they did a really nice job of showing Ford as like, this is not the men's fault. This is your fault. This is the officer's fault for not setting clear expectations for the men. And also it showed Neeson being way too chummy with his men and way too laid back. And the fact that he was trying to defend a man who was drunk on the job on a sub, it goes back and forth where there is a lot of gray area, where there is no clear antagonist and clear protagonist. And I felt like normally I would be like, okay, well, is this protagonist confusion? But it also felt applicable, and where it wasn't like a poorly written novel where you're like, oh, this is the bad guy. Clearly, this is the guy who's gonna screw everybody over in the end.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to that point though, like what I never got was a scene where I felt like Ford had some sort of real humanizing moment with Neeson, where he's like, just, to go back to Star Trek: The Motion Picture, at least we got that scene with Kirk where it's like, stop fighting me, Deckard, like that sort of thing. Like I needed a scene like that to really establish the dynamic between the two of them. And I don't think that I got it here.
I mean, I will slightly disagree. I think we didn't get a 1-for-1 of that, but when he backs Ford after the mutiny, I think that is the essence of that, where it is really clearly drawing. It's later in the game, but it really clearly is drawing the relationship between the two.
But that's the thing. It's so late in the game.
Yeah, it is too late. But
I mean, you're not wrong, Darren. You're not wrong.
Maybe an earlier scene, not with that much weight behind it, but where he demonstrably backs the captain, and then somebody's like, dude, the hell? Like, why are you backing this guy? And he's like, because he's the captain, and like walks off or something like, a stronger, just one stronger scene would have given me a little bit more to hold on to.
Side
my
note,
opinion.
I love that Joss Ackland,
Love
the one of the bigwig Russian guys with the
Defense
white
Minister.
hair.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I love that he is also in Red October.
Yes.
And
I consider it the same
enti-
character. I really do.
Same character,
Like,
basically. And I half expected like it to end with somebody coming to him and saying, "You lost another submarine."
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, he's got the voice. Like, he is just, if he plays all the Russian hierarchy in every movie, I wouldn't even care. I would just be like, this is the Josh Ackland universe of running the fatherland, you know.
It's like that one guy who always plays the Chicago cop.
Yeah. Yes,
Right.
Exactly. But, you know, also
The Reginald
he's-
Bell Johnson of Russian leadership.
Yeah. It's not even going down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
That's a crazy one. Yeah. No, I mean, Ackland is great in what little he's given to do. But I mean, am I the only one? Like, I really had a hard time connecting with the movie. Like, I thought there was so much, like one of the things that I thought of while I was watching it, because this is my first time, was what we were talking about last week with Strange Days, where we were talking about the camera being in super tight spaces. And I will say that the Hunt for Red October and Crimson Tide, those sets are very dramatically lit, very, very film submarines. This felt like I was actually on a submarine, and the tight spaces, I found the filming to be amazing in this because I felt cramped when they were. I felt like I was trying to squeeze through corridors and getting through with like a giant, camera and, roll speed, and running through and everything. That had to be just hell in the production.
Yeah, I read in research that apparently they developed a rail system that went down the ceiling, and that is what the camera was hooked on, and then they painted it out so it blended in, and that's how it was the size. It wasn't like, oh, we just swing out this, this wall. Right. And it's like, no, we are in a tin can. It was obviously a set, but it was an actual, submarine set. And yeah, you feel that claustrophobia. Me, I think we're all kind of on the same page as far as when there are certain locations, you need to know where you are. That's kind of important. And in this one, while I never had a full mental picture of the sub, I could still understand of like, oh, there's the command room. There's the, torpedo room. Like I know what room I was in at any given time. I just maybe didn't know what the next room connecting it was.
Yes.
All right. So, okay, Darren, I know you're going to laugh at me. But you mentioned down
Did
Periscope
you pull up
earlier.
a diagram?
No. Okay, so this movie was shot by Jeff Cronenworth, who is a fantastic DP. He's known for Fight Club, Social Network. This guy knows what he's doing. And this John, like you said, this movie is really well shot. But Darren, when you were talking about like geography, like knowing where you are and everything like that, no lie, down Periscope had some of the best geography when it came to a submarine. Like you knew exactly where you were and where it was placed in the submarine. And for those of you who say like, oh, well, like it's a modern movie shot in modern times, they're like, nope, they were on a World War II sub. Okay, so it was even smaller than the K-19. Yeah. I just needed to throw that out there because it's a stupid ass movie, but it's it's shot really well.
You got the Typhoon class in Crimson Tide, or no, in Hunt for Red October, which is like the giant Cadillac of subs. It's so
if you're going to be stationed on a sub, you want to be on the Typhoon class. I mean, let's be honest. Plenty of breathing room.
That's what I was thinking. No, so we talked about the look. We talked about the kind of rooting for a group rather than an individual kind of vibe of this movie. Like, except for a few standouts, it's really the crew. is how we kind of view it, or at least how I
Whoa,
view
whoa, whoa,
it.
whoa.
Like,
Rooting for the group instead of the individual? What kind of red commie talk is that?
He got into the spirit
look,
of the
comrade,
movie, Tristan.
This is how
I mean,
you watch
obviously,
a Russian movie.
K-9, yes. in Soviet Russia, movie watches you.
When they were watching that film of like the worst parts of America, and then he's like, don't let American propaganda fool you, with everybody, like having their own car, wearing nice clothes, and individualism. And then like part of me, like a real big part of me as an American kind of perked up, and I was like, individualism? Yeah. Rock on.
It's pretty great. I think it's pretty awesome, honestly.
Like I started playing an electric guitar in my head while a bald eagle was screaming over my head. I was like, hell yeah.
Hey,
It's okay.
I mean,
we'll get the Team America World Police in here, and they'll set it all straight.
Yeah, they'll straighten everything out. No, I think that I thought it was very smart to include that scene though, because of the fact that we don't typically get to see how like that. I don't know that everybody understands the historical perspective of the idea of the political officer. Yes, he was there on Hunt for Red October as the secret antagonist to stretch out Act 3 and stuff like that. But like, it really was a way of life. You had a guy who went around that was like, oh no, this is what you believe, just to remind you. And if you don't believe that, then I'm going to report you, like that.
To the gulag.
Right, exactly. And it's I think it's very good that this movie included it. So, tip of the hat to the script and to keeping it in, the production to really underline how much of a part of life it was for them.
And also, I really appreciated what Bigelow was doing with this, because at no point did you feel like, like so many times in war movies, even though this wasn't during a time of war, it was a Cold War, but it was, you have the goodies and the baddies. And even when you're watching something like Das Boot, like you're watching it and you're like, okay, these are clearly the bad guys. I mean, yeah, these are people conscripted and they may not believe what they're believing, but they're still they're still on the bad side. Like with this movie and the way that Bigelow is portraying the crew, the ship, and their mission and their purpose, there was no declaration of good versus evil. It was, we're here to protect the Soviet Union. We're here to show them that we can advance, we can shoot this missile, and we can be there. And it's just to show them. And it's just like, we're showing a show of strength. And this is what we believe. It was just, I'm having a hard time articulating it, but it was a great way to show the other side of the fence, or I should say curtain, where it was an interesting peek behind the curtain. And it was not like, oh, well, these are, like it's a bad cause led by bad people with bad people on the boat. It was just, here's the other side that you don't normally see. Not glorifying it, not vilifying it. I thought that was pretty interesting.
So you think it would be fair to say there are heroes on both sides? Evil is everywhere. Would you think that's a fair couple of lines to throw out there?
No.
Maybe? No,
I'm not going to say that.
You're not going to say that?
I'm not going to say that. You can say that.
Well,
I didn't
I would
say
agree with a great philosopher who put that out there, but hey, that's just me.
Well, and
did the accents bother you guys?
No, you know what? I'm glad Tristan brought this up. The accents, not really, because they didn't lean into it really hard. They gave like hint of accent, but so like it wasn't egregious. It wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio attempting an Irish accent in Gangs of New York.
Or even worse, Cameron Diaz attempting an Irish accent in Gangs of New York.
The thing is, I don't consider that attempting an Irish accent because I don't know what she was attempting in Gangs of New York, honestly. That's first I've heard somebody actually call it an Irish accent. So, okay then. The little hint of accent was enough for me. I mean, I'm still of the camp where it's like they're speaking Russian to each other. None of them have an accent.
Okay. For decades, I've gone back and forth on this, where that is a very solid argument. Where you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, if you're on a Russian boat or Soviet boat, they're going to be speaking Russian to each other. They're not going to be speaking English with a Russian accent. We get it. But at the same time, my brain needs some sort of otherness, needs some sort of foreign entity to tell me that this is a different place. Because, okay, so I felt like it worked in Valkyrie because they didn't attempt any accents there, but they did the Red October thing where, like, you know, Tom Cruise is like writing in his journal or writing a letter and he's speaking Russian, and as he's writing, it turns into English and you hear him narrating his own voice and it turns into English, and then everybody's just like either British or American or whatever. Doesn't matter. They're German. But then there was another submarine movie. I can't remember which one, but it had David Duchovny and Ed Harris, and they're Russian, and they didn't have any accents whatsoever. It was just Ed Harris being Ed Harris and David Duchovny being David Duchovny, and it felt freaking wrong.
I love both of those actors that you named, but I would say it's because their vocal range is such that it's impossible to hear anything but sort of an American region to how they're speaking, if that makes sense. They have very uniquely American speech patterns.
That's true. Duchovny and Harris are very uniquely American. It's true.
Yeah. Whereas like Harrison Ford has a more neutral, and Liam Neeson, you know, is Irish. Like, so it's like, it's, you know, one of those things.
No, I think the handling of the dialect was enough that I didn't even think about it, of like, oh yeah, that's right, they're all speaking in Russian. It was just, I think they leaned into it's a movie and understandability is king. If your audience cannot understand what you're saying, you know, and that's the route, you know, that she went, which isn't bad. It's just, you know, not one of the pillars of the film. But yeah, I liked what you were talking about, Tristan, as far as the plot, where it is rare for a war movie, a submarine war movie, to be like, this is a disaster movie. It's them versus the situation. Like, the Americans are barely in it. And like, there's not a single torpedo being fired in this whole movie. The torpedo, I mean, technically it rolls over a guy inside the submarine.
Ruins a dude's hand. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't
that's
like
tough
seeing
to
those
watch.
voice.
Yeah.
But I like you said, and we've all heard this before in other stories of no one sees themselves as a villain. You know, no one writes themselves in the story as that. And this is just the other side of the curtain. But let's, you know, as we're slowly rounding towards ratings, you know, I felt like we've given this film a pretty decent once over, you know, as far as story and characters. But John, you look like you have something on your mind.
Well, we haven't talked about the editing yet, which is something we have to talk about, because a legendary editor worked on this film. Walter freaking Murch worked on this film. I gotta ask, did this seem like it was legendary editing? I mean, like, you know, I didn't realize it was Walter Murch until I revisited the credits and stuff like that. And I was like, really? Walter Murch? Now, the thing is, like, I thought the way things were put together was well paced. I thought everything worked together, you know, pretty well in both a micro and a macro. But like, is it unfair to say that, wow, Walter Murch worked on this, but I don't feel like this was a tremendous editing work, if that makes sense? Like, are my expectations too high?
That's why Walter Murch is one of the best ever. Is because you didn't have a feeling one way or the other.
True.
Like, you didn't think, oh, this is really poor editing, or like, oh man, the editing in that was amazing. Like if you were watching something like by Tony Scott or Fincher or something,
you don't
like
want to notice it.
Murch is the king of not being noticed. He is a silent hunter. He is the one that you bring in when you want a well-crafted story and something that is well edited, that does not insist upon itself. It is something that is just, he's so streamlined. He knows exactly how to trick your brain and trick your eyes into not seeing what you saw. That's why this was
Very,
Walter Murch.
very, very fair. I mean, because the thing is, like I was saying, like when you're moving through the sub, when you have the scenes cutting back and forth, it is all really strong stuff. But it is, I like the way you put it. He's silent about it. There's nothing here to draw attention to the edit, like you said, as opposed to like a Tony Scott movie where it's like, you know, the jet fighters are flying around in Top Gun and it's like, what's cool? This looks awesome. But wait, what? This is a very, I can tell everything that's going on and I understand everything that's going on. I actually think there were a couple of, I applauded this for the fact that, I mean, you know, especially the era this comes out, underwater CG is the most forgiving CG that you can make. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the fact that they did the thing where they were inside and they would keep going up and your brain is like, okay, well, you have to stop because that's the ceiling. But then it kept going and you went through the shell of the sub to show the difference between the outer hull and the inner hull, and then go up and go out into the water after that to see everything larger. I thought that was a great choice.
Now, when we talk about films, we rarely talk about sound design. I mean, it is a piece of the film puzzle, but I found myself in this one specifically. There was one sound in particular that really stood out to me, and I don't know if it was the same for you guys, but the flickering of the radiation alarm light bulb. There's many scenes when no one's talking. They're just kind of in the situation. And all you really hear is that little like click, click, click of like, you know, they've silenced the alarm, but it's still going, which means there's still a problem. Did that, you know, did you pause in that moment at all, John, or did that kind of just get washed over with all the other things that are going on when it took a moment to breathe?
No, I actually, I like you calling the sound design out, because the sound design in specific is, I considered it strong because the sound environment, you know, Tristan just praised, you know, Walter Murch. You don't notice him. There's nothing that jumped out at me because to my ear, this all sounded right. This sounded like it should sound inside the sub while everybody's going around. And when I was outside the sub, it sounded right as well. There wasn't an overproduced quality to the sound design. It was simply there. That ticking in the back about the radiation alarm, I thought was one of the nicest touches, actually, because it's like that thing where sometimes you'll hear a song or something else where if you really listen to it, you realize there's like a little heartbeat going.
Right.
And once that radiation alarm ticking comes into play, it's suddenly like, oh, it's tick, tick. It reminds you of a clock. The countdown has started. How much time do I have left? And it's just subtly enough in the background. And I think they really did well with that.
Yeah, every tick is like, I'm pumping more radiation into the sub. Like the problem is not solved. It's you know, mediated for a moment, but it is still ill there. I mean, I think of that. I think of, like you said, the sound of as they're diving or surfacing and you hear the crunch of the metal as it's kind of reworking itself, or the surfacing scene, which is fairly early on in the movie, but when they go down and then they just jet and go straight into the ice, like that's a great sequence. Like I have never seen that a sub do that in a movie before with the ice impact. Usually it's just very slow, like, hey, look, we're going to raise just the tower out. That's all we brought with us to our filming location. This was more like, we're going to drive straight into the ice flow, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I it's really kind of tough because I think that this gets back to something that Bigelow, what we've noticed, or at least what I've noticed while we've been looking at her films, is that from a technical aspect, it is always 5 stars across the board. As a technical artist, she is one of the best out there, in my opinion. The camera work, and it's not even something where she ever gets credit for any innovation or anything like that, but she takes the technology that exists and she makes it really strong, and she gets a crew around her that is going to help put together something that's really strong from a technical perspective. The downside is, I think that it's almost similar, although their styles are wildly different, to where it can sometimes go wrong with like a Zack Snyder movie, where the technical part is there, the emotional part is what winds up being lost in the shuffle, if that makes sense. Where it's like, I feel like there should be more emotional punch to this. But intellectually, I'm satisfied with the way everything comes together and is constructed. So from an intellectual perspective, I can look at it, I can say that is a really well-crafted film. But my heart says, And it's tough because I think for film to really land for a person, it has to have that heart moment as much as anything technical. You'll forgive a lot of technical problems if it really connects with you on an emotional level. I think that's sort of where this struggles, and I think this is something that we've seen happen with Bigelow throughout all of her movies.
John, I think I'm with you on that, where like this movie is really technically accurate. It has some great sets, great cinematography, editing, even the music. Like I enjoyed the music, and normally sometimes that's an afterthought or it's generic. Like I thought this was actually had a lot of presence, but there's a lot wrong with it. Like I feel like we were very gracious towards this movie for a very big portion of the episode because we wanted to like it, or at least I wanted to like it. And I've seen this before and I was kind of like, And then in preparation for this podcast, when I watched it again, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a fair shake. You know, it's been almost 20 years since I've seen it. You know, like let me give it another shot. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, You know, like the first act is so slow. It takes so long to get into it. And the bickering between Neeson and Ford is so repetitive. Like you don't feel like you have any build. It's just like, it almost feels episodic, this movie, where it's just like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And it's hard to get connected with everyone because of those things. And it's, you know, like I get it, the duty to the state versus duty to one's men is very powerful, but sometimes I feel like it's over articulated in the dialogue. And it's a little simplistic with how complex real life can be, in my opinion. And I don't know. I feel like we got a lot of, I simultaneously appreciated that we stayed on the boat, but at the same time we had some sort of, it felt like visual monotony. And I just could not connect with this movie. I wanted to like it. I wanted to like this movie so bad because it has so many people that I like in it. And it's a great story, and it's based on real events, which in itself makes it more compelling. But it just does not reach that upper echelon.
Yeah, I think the fact that, like you said, the story never leaves the boat. You don't get any third presence omniscient or anything. It's all their point of view. And that's something where, again, you know, it's hard to not compare it to Red October, but Red October is, we're seeing people on land, we're seeing government officials, we're seeing other people, and I guess we do get a tiny bit of that, you know, maybe a 1%. But yeah, you need that to continue to build the world. But I could also see going in that direction of, no, we're going to tell the POV, we're going to tell the tin can, and that. So it's not a bad choice. It's just, it makes it harder to connect to the crew, which I think we've all agreed on that.
Yeah. And just to add on to what you're saying, Darren, I think that more, and maybe this is the, you know, lapdog of the West speaking from my heart here, but
American pig dog.
yes, but more of the thing, because there are bits of it where like they encounter, it's like they didn't give us radiation suits. They gave us chemical suits. This is the wrong thing. It's like, I'm trying to fight radiation poisoning with aspirin. Like that was one of the things that really contributed to the fall of the Soviets, was like this bureaucratic nightmare of a life where it was just like, oh, they gave me the wrong thing. The weld was incorrect. This equipment is wrong. It would have been
you gave me a 50 volt piece of equipment that's supposed to handle 70 volts, something like that.
It would have been nice to see more emotional reaction to that, even if it was to give somebody the opportunity to be like, shut up, the political officer is going to hear. Don't say things like that, so that we could at least get the sense of what the movie establishes, but I don't ever think lands the connective emotional punch of, this boat is a miracle that it even sailed because of all of the compromises in construction and outfitting that happened, which was simply a byproduct of the way that place ran. It was like, oh my goodness, like this should have failed. This should have been a disaster that potentially set off World War III. We're lucky as hell it didn't. I didn't have that relief moment to be like, oh, geez, like with the crew complaining the whole time about like, what, we're supposed to be a superpower. Why can't I get a decent cracker? Like that sort of vibe to the crew. It would have been nice.
Everything paid for by the lowest bidder.
Yeah, basically. And by people who can't, and determined by people who can't get fired because they have party connections and stuff like that.
Right.
Well,
as we slide into our reviews, Tristan, I want you to give your thoughts on length and pacing and runtime. That's often something we like to talk about. And you'd already kind of talked a little about the first act kind of dragging. Overall, I felt that this movie, it had a weird act structure. Like it did not feel like 1, 2, 3. It felt like 1, 2, 3. So how did that play out to you, and then go into your rating?
Yeah, like as I mentioned, the first act really drags, where you're kind of feeling like, okay, when is the movie going to start? And like you said, it almost felt like it had a 5-act structure, but not in a well-defined way, where when you don't do a 5-act structure properly, it feels like the way that you just described it. Okay, a weird first act, a super long second act, and then all of a sudden a hurry up and wait third act with a super
Anacoda.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. In a super weird coda. I was gonna say epilogue, but yes, like it was just like, oh, okay, we didn't have to end the movie here. Like we could have ended the movie with Harrison Ford stripping on the boat, and then just some title cards. I think that would have been fine. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it was like 2 hours and 19 minutes, but it was actually much shorter than that if you take away the credits. And so I didn't really feel like it was too long. It just was structured oddly. And like I said, it felt like it was episodic within itself, which is not a good thing to feel when watching a movie. And so to me, because of all the with the structure, with the lack of emotional connection, with the solemnity and this visual dourness, I wanted to like this movie. I really did, but I'm going to give it a 2.5 stars. This movie's not bad. It's not good. It's just eh.
Yeah,
That's the sound I hear.
Yeah, I could. I'm vibing with everything you're saying, Tristan. I really am. I think I'm a little more forgiving because I think that I still am in awe of how well the camera moves inside such a tight space. It really is something that amazed me while I was watching it, where I think that of all of the submarine movies that I've watched, this is the first one since Das Boot where I felt the claustrophobia, where I really felt like I was trapped in a space that I didn't want to be in, and made me question why in the hell anybody would do this to themselves. relatives in the Navy. Some of them did submarine duty. And I'm like, I don't know how you don't go crazy in a place like that. I can't even, like, an airplane is too cramped for me. I would have lost my mind inside a submarine. Like, I couldn't have done it. And I really applaud that camera work. I think the sound design is, to what Darren was talking about earlier, like, I thought the sound design was very good. A lot of technical high marks for this. And so I think I wind up grading it a little generously, because will I ever come back to K-19? I don't think so. But I could see a situation wherein I'm sort of, on the couch one night, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I'm like just looking through the services, and it's like, oh, K-19's, okay, sure, I'll turn that on. Just because I enjoy the technical aspects of it. I think that stuff flows pretty well. So I'm going to give it a 3. It's sort of a generous 3. I could have gone 2 because, again, I have no emotional connection. I think the coda at the end is weird. It almost like it's just an excuse to get Harrison Ford in old person makeup. And, although I think Harrison Ford looks great in a goatee, and I think he should try the look more often. But yeah, so that's a generous 3 from me.
Yeah, to that point, I think Liam Neeson looks with 90s old man glasses, looks great in that. Like, they sold those looks really well in that end shot in the coda. Yeah, no, I agree with all we've said. The technical aspect, I liked what you were leaning into, John, about like, when would I watch this again? And I feel like I would put it in rotation if I was on a submarine kick. If I was like, oh, I want to watch a bunch of submarine movies. Like, yeah, I would put it on the list. I would watch it. It was engaging enough. It was interesting enough on its submarineness. I wouldn't watch it going, I really want to watch a movie where I connect with the characters. No, that's not its strength. But for shooting in a boat, it definitely does. So I'm giving it a 3 as well. I know we're going to keep going up, but I feel like I'm topped out at 3 so far for Kathryn Bigelow for the last couple of films. But yeah, it's, as we talk about her in the greater context, she's nailing the technical, she's nailing, the look. And it's just getting that right combo of actor and directing and story and caring that I think we're probably going to get next week, as this little thing called the Academy seemed to really, really enjoy it. But yeah, as we move past K-19, The Widowmaker, next week, we're going to be talking about 2008's The Hurt Locker here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.